those efforts were successful, he sent new House Speaker Nancy Pelosi the New York Times front page from the day she was sworn in, with his signature and the inscription, "Nancy, you're the best." To leaders of Trump's party, seeking to maximize their productivity during the coming 2 years, in which they would have total control of government, the fact that the new president gravitated toward the opposition was disturbing. Already, Schumer and Jared Kushner had both appeared at a post-election event hosted by the Partnership for New York City, where, at adjacent panels, the two had acknowledged that Trump was closer to the Democratic leadership on a possible infrastructure plan than he was to the Republicans. The Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell told colleagues that they hadn't needed the new president to be a modern-day Abraham Lincoln, but just a normal, right-of-center president who could help them achieve their goals. He was warned that all the qualities he would want to see in a president, conviction, temperament, intellectual curiosity, honesty, simply were not there in Trump. And after meeting with the president-elect, he observed that Trump had no idea what he believed in. For all of the unpreparedness he brought to his first stint in public service, Trump quickly took to serving as host of the country's most famous home, bringing a hotelier sense of hospitality to the presidency. Trump told Schumer that the kitchen had specially prepared canapes that would appeal to him, have the meatballs, they're kosher, and turned toward the row of unfamiliar, racially diverse faces against the wall. "Why don't you get the food?" he asked. Reince Priebus, his face blanching in embarrassment, told the president that those were top officials working for the Democratic leaders. Priebus went to get the servers himself. As the little meatballs and pigs in blankets emerged, finger food that would soon become a White House staple at the president's request, Trump turned the conversation to a topic he had been raising in the days since he had assumed the presidency. His 3 million vote deficit in the national popular vote could be attributed only to the ballots cast by illegals, he asserted. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi broke the silence that followed. "I don't believe so, Mr. President," she said. Trump insisted that his evidence came from Bernard Langer, a professional golfer who called a friend. In Trump's telling, when Langer went to vote in Florida, there were people in line near him who did not appear to be citizens, but were nevertheless handed provisional ballots. Later, Langer's daughter tried to correct the record, noting that her father and Trump were not friends, and White House officials conceded that Langer, a German citizen who could not vote in American elections himself, had been relating a story told to him by someone else. It was, in many ways, a quintessential Trump tale, beginning with a small fragment of something that had occurred, shrouded in other basic details that were completely wrong, distorted to make a larger point. Around this time, Trump also repeated a similarly baseless story that Massachusetts voters had been bussed across the border to cast ballots in New Hampshire, a state counting more narrowly. But as president, this fabulism had consequences. Within months, Trump had launched a presidential advisory commission on election integrity to investigate supposed instances of fraud, featuring state administrators and chaired by the vice president. Pence, who over time also came to prefer giving Trump positive news when he had to deliver negative information, took the assignment without complaining, and others in the building were relieved to avoid being the ones tasked with it. Trump was the only modern president who had never met most of his senior advisors and cabinet appointees before he won the presidency. His 3 top White House aides, Priebus, Bannon, and Kushner, had never served in government either. He approached the new bureaucracy in much the same way he had a family-run business, demanding that employees sign agreements that would prevent them from ever speaking publicly about the experience. The White House counsel made clear to some staff that the contract was not enforceable. It didn't take long for Trump's group of new aides to pick up on the fact that he was effective at raising an idea without revealing his motive or why he was doing so. He was equally effective at suggesting someone ought to handle a task without openly giving them a directive. On Trump's first day in office, his new press secretary, Sean Spicer, went to the briefing room and delivered falsehoods about the unprecedented size of the inaugural crowd. Spicer told people that it was not at Trump's direction. Nonetheless, his colleagues said, being validated was indisputably what the president wanted. The seemingly impossible task of directing Trump's attention to his chief of staff, the top White House administrator responsible for the national control personnel. obvious options for the job. Trump knew he could not get away with appointing a relative like Kushner. Ever looking for people who could speak for him in public, Trump repeatedly said he wanted his campaign manager, Brian Conlon, available to serve as a representative on television. Both of his party's congressional leaders helped to persuade Trump to select Priebus, whom Trump had come to rely on as a source of staff and financial support, even as his campaign and the party had interacted under conditions of mutual suspicion. Bannon, who claimed not to have been interested in the chief of staff role for which he'd been passed over, was named the White House's chief strategist. Bannon seized the chance of unprecedented access to power in the White House. Bannon asserted himself as the guardian of the Trump policy agenda that appealed to the president's base of supporters, as detailed on 4 large whiteboards arrayed under a Make America Great Again headline on his office wall. They were filled with objectives, from hire 5,000 more border control agents to repeal and replace Obamacare, marked with a red X when completed. There were plenty of unmarked objectives ultimately. In his first week in office, Trump signed an executive order granting Bannon a permanent seat on the National Security Council's Principals Committee, elevating him above the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Director of National Intelligence, an unprecedented elevation of someone appointed to a political post. His primary role is to control or guide the president's conscience based on his campaign promises, former White House Chief of Staff and CIA Director Leon Panetta told my colleague at the time. That's not what the National Security Council is supposed to be about. The executive order also downgraded the CIA seat, and the uproar and bad headlines the whole mess created infuriated Trump, who insisted he hadn't realized the potential fallout from the details of what he was signing. Regardless of titles, Kushner sought to establish himself as the most consequential gatekeeper of the presidency. He had an outsized view of his ability to solve problems by changing their nature, as he liked to say during the campaign. After the election, he gave a rare on-the-record interview to Forbes about his role, and his soft-spoken boasts led to the cover line, "This guy got Trump elected," a headline his father-in-law resented. Kushner entered the White House with an unformed portfolio. At a meeting during the transition, he told corporate executives that everything would run through him. He was often described as a shadow chief of staff, holding his own meetings with prospective cabinet members. Yet it was more accurate to call him a shadow president. Trump tasked Kushner with working on Israeli-Palestinian relations, to the astonishment of foreign policy experts. Kushner, who had a fleeting family relationship with Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, soon began to look beyond the Middle East, establishing his own foreign policy ties, to the frustration of State Department officials. He worked on Trump's ultimately successful effort to revise the quarter-century-old North American Free Trade Agreement with Canada and Mexico. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson once bumped into Mexico's foreign minister at a restaurant in a surprise encounter, only to discover that he was in Washington to meet the president's son-in-law. Kushner mixed know-it-all confidence with a stunning lack of preparation on some issues. He told aides to the House Speaker that the committee system defining how bills move through Congress sounded inefficient, and that the system may need to be rethought. He seemed genuinely surprised when warned by White House officials that his family's plan to buy the Miami Marlins baseball team was a conflict of interest because the team's owner was under consideration for an ambassadorship. Though they went to Washington as allies, Kushner and Bannon soon found themselves in conflict. Bannon came to describe Kushner as the heir, for entering meetings without leaving an impression, and he would insist Kushner was spreading unfavorable stories about him to the press. Some of it was internal bureaucratic politics as they built up rival power centers, jockeying for staff, visibility, and internal allies as a way of asserting influence on presidential decisions. Nowhere were the stakes of that personal conflict higher than over the issue of immigration. During the final months of the campaign and throughout the transition, Kushner had indicated to a steady stream of pro-immigration reform advocates, tech executives, and longtime party strategists that Trump's invective against Latinos was not going to dictate policy. It was similar to how he and Ivanka tried to engage with other progressive activists, suggesting that there were deals to be made on various policies. The most urgent immediate issue was the fate of Obama's program halting deportations for undocumented immigrants who had come to the United States as children. Like much of his party's pro-business establishment, House Speaker Paul Ryan was interested in finding a permanent legislative solution, and Kushner signaled that the White House was at least willing to discuss it. Trump insisted he was open to a broader immigration reform deal in a luncheon with television anchors at the White House on the day of his first address to Congress, a predecessor's tradition to which he adhered. The time is right for an immigration bill as long as there is compromise on both sides, Trump said. But when the cameras were on him that evening, he offered a mixed bag of positions, calling for his border wall, while also saying real and positive immigration reform is possible. He appeared not to understand that these concepts were not seen as compatible in Congress. Kushner continued to engage with liberal groups who had hopes for a version of Trump that ultimately did not exist. One such overture was to David Plouffe, a former top advisor to Obama, now working with Mark Zuckerberg-funded groups. Arriving in the West Wing to meet with Kushner, Plouffe looked around the room at what had once been his own workspace and said to Kushner, "I love what you've done with The Office." Kushner looked blankly at Plouffe and said, "Oh, have you been here before?" Plouffe's eyes traveled to the small television sets that had been embedded into the walls since he worked there. "Why were they there?" he asked. Kushner replied that his father-in-law was watching throughout the day, and he needed to know what Trump was seeing. When it came to immigration policy, it was the hardline Bannon and the policy advisor Stephen Miller, previously a Sessions staffer in the Senate, who ultimately had the most impact. Miller had been a significant force in the presidency before it began. During transition, he was a proponent of a legal theory by which Trump could declare members of drug cartels unlawful combatants and send active duty troops to the border. "Can we do that?" Trump asked advisors. They said no repeatedly. Miller, at the time seen as a Bannon ally, had more success with his anti-immigration agenda. His first accomplishment was a policy restricting visitors, refugees, and people with immigrant visas from 7 Muslim-majority countries, a more targeted version of the blanket ban on Muslims that Trump had proposed as a candidate. Miller discussed the planned policy with personal contacts at the Customs and Border Protection Agency, but Secretary John Kelly, whose Department of Homeland Security would be tasked with enforcing it, had little time to give input before Trump signed the executive order. Overly broad, the final version did not account for, among other things, people already in airplanes at the time it was signed, ensuring a mess upon their arrival at American border checkpoints. Proponents of the order later insisted it was not simply incompetence at work, that the chaos was by design. Miller told Border Control officials that they were performing their jobs well. "Isn't this place great?" Trump said to his first major visitor from overseas, British Prime Minister Theresa May. But he added quickly, "I've been to Buckingham Palace and that's even greater." Trump had traveled to the United Kingdom during his presidential campaign. The occasion was the opening of his Turnberry Golf Resort on the Scottish coast, and spoke in reliably familiar terms about the special relationship between the country and the United States. May came to the White House with a clear plan to extract some kind of clarity on issues where the two allies had historically seen eye to eye, but Trump's campaign statements had hinted at conflict: international trade, a posture toward Vladimir Putin's Russia, and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and its mutual defense commitments. But for May, getting Trump to focus on any issue was impossible. He talked about the crowds at the inauguration. He spent his first full day as president obsessing over its coverage, even fuming about it in front of a CIA wall honoring agents killed, and the Women's March that had drawn millions of Americans to the streets in protest. "Abortion is such a tough issue," Trump said, unprompted, according to extensive notes of the discussion. "Some people are pro-life, some people are pro-choice. Imagine if some animals with tattoos raped your daughter and she got pregnant." He pointed to Pence, who was in the room. "He's the really tough one on abortion," Trump said, before asking May whether she was pro-life. From there, Trump brought up that his mother came from Scotland, then asked whether May's predecessor had mishandled things. "Why isn't Boris Johnson the prime minister? Didn't he want the job?" Trump asked about the former London mayor, then serving as May's foreign minister. "Sounds like you have a team of rivals," Trump told her. "I couldn't do that. John Kasich wanted to work for me after the election, but I couldn't do that." When the discussion turned to Northern Ireland, Trump appeared to get bored and turned the conversation to an offshore wind project he wanted to block near his Scottish golf course. Trump asked whether immigration was a factor in the previous year's vote to remove the United Kingdom from the European Union. May said that it had been, but in the context of a broader issue about borders and sovereignty. "We're going to get tough on immigration," Trump said. "The Europeans have opened the doors to bad people. The United States would not have a situation like the terrorist attack in Paris," he said. He moved on to criticizing Angela Merkel, the German chancellor. Crime is way up in Germany. Women are getting raped all over the place, Trump said, predicting Merkel would lose her election that fall. May contradicted him, saying that Merkel, in fact, was Europe's best politician. May went to one of her primary interests for the conversation, sanctions against Russia, and whether Trump planned to discuss them with Putin. Trump turned to his national security advisor and asked if a call had been scheduled with Putin. Tomorrow, replied Michael Flynn. Trump looked flustered and had returned to the topic a few times, clearly unhappy and indicating he was unaware.
What you're going to do is flex your head to the opposite side. If you do have nerve entrapment of the median nerve, this is a great test. You'll probably feel some pain coming down through your shoulder and into your arm. To do the radial nerve, what you're going to Hi, I'm Dr. Bree. Today we're going to be going over how to test and do some nerve flexing for the median, the radial, and the ulnar nerve. To begin, we're going to do the median nerve. What you're going to do is start with your hand in front of your face. You're going to reach out to your side, and then you're going to extend your hand backwards. Now, what you're going to do is flex your head to the opposite side. If you do have nerve entrapment of the median nerve, this is a great test. You'll probably feel some pain coming down through your shoulder and into your arm. To do the radial nerve, what you're going to do, again, start with your palm in front of your face. You're going to reach back, like you're going to reach into the back of your car, and then you're going to flip your palm up, kind of like you're trying to cup something. Again, flex away, and you might feel some pain or some pinching along that nerve tract. Lastly, my favorite, the ulnar nerve. You're going to bring your hand out, you're going to make a little circle, and then you're going to bring your arm and your fingers up to your eye, making a monocle. This is going to test the ulnar nerve, and if you have any pinch nerve or something going on with the ulnar nerve, you should feel a little bit of pain. These are really great self-tests to diagnose if you have nerve entrapment. It's also a great way to loosen up the muscles that may be entrapping them. So go ahead and try those, and try these flossing techniques, and see if you get any relief with your pain. And then you're going to extend your hand backwards to your face. You're going to reach out. To begin, we're going to do the median nerve. What you're going to do, start with your hand in front of your face. You're going to reach out to your side, and then you're going to extend your hand backwards. Now, what you're going to do is flex your head to the opposite side. If you do have nerve entrapment of the median nerve, this is a great test. You'll probably feel some pain coming down through your shoulder and into your arm. To do the radial nerve, what you're going to do, again, start with your palm in front of your face. You're going to reach back, like you're going to reach into the back of your car, and then you're going to flip your palm up, kind of like you're trying to cup something. Again, flex away, and you might feel some pain or some pinching along that nerve tract. Lastly, my favorite, the ulnar nerve. You're going to bring your hand out, you're going to make a little circle, and then you're going to bring your arm and your fingers up to your eye, making a monocle. This is going to test the ulnar nerve, and if you have any pinch nerve or something going on with the ulnar nerve, you should feel a little bit of pain. These are really great self-tests to diagnose if you have nerve entrapment. It's also a great way to loosen up the muscles that may be entrapping them. So go ahead and try those, and try these flossing techniques, and see if you get any relief with your pain.
Do you experience a shoulder pain which is so severe that it wakes you up at night or even prevents you from sleeping? What about shoulder pain when you're lifting something, especially when lifting something above your head? Well, this is the right video for you. So the majority of shoulder pains are caused by either an impingement syndrome, a bursitis, or rotator cuff irritation. And the exercises I'm going to demonstrate to you will be beneficial for all of these pathologies. The first three exercises I'm going to demonstrate to you will give you immediate pain relief. Then what I'll do is I'll go through a most common sleeping position, so on your back, your side, and your front, and I will tell you and demonstrate to you how you can make little adaptations. You can have a great night's sleep. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate some really good strengthening exercises to you, which will help you to get rid of the pain now, but also help to prevent it in the future. So this video comes with a really handy worksheet, exercise sheet. I'll link to that in the comments, so you can click on that and then download it if you need to, so you don't have to come back to the video all the time. And if you have a shoulder pain, but you're also struggling with movement, you might experience a frozen shoulder, and this video will be more beneficial to you than the one we're doing now. And if you want to self-diagnose shoulder pain, actually see, okay, what's causing the pain, I've also done a video with all self-tests you can do at home. I'll guide you through that, and you can see which structure is actually causing your pain. Okay, let's get started. So the first exercise, super simple exercise, all you need is a chair. And what we're trying to do is we're going to try to get a bit more space in your shoulder joint itself. And by giving space, we're reducing the compression you have on those structures that will cause you the shoulder pain. So have a chair, and all you do now is hold on to the seat of your chair, keep your arm straight, elbow straight, and lean away from your shoulder. So we're creating a little bit of traction in that shoulder joint. You hold that for about 5 to 10 seconds, and you repeat about 5 times. Now, if you pull too hard, that's definitely going to hurt. So pull just a little bit, yeah, and hold it to the side here, 5 to 10 seconds, repeat about 5 times. Now, what you can also do is make sure you change your arm position. So I'm now having my hand here to the side, but I can also hold on to the front of my seat and lean back a little bit. That might give you some more relief. Or maybe you want a little more forward on the side here and lean back. Or perhaps in your case, you get more relief if you hold on to the back of your seat and then lean forward. So just play around this a little bit. You can do this all day long. You won't cause any damage as long as you don't pull too hard. Just give a bit of relief. Again, hold it for about 10 seconds and repeat about 5 times. So the second exercise is a continuation from the first one. So instead of applying traction sitting down, we're now going to apply traction standing up. But the beauty is we can actually make this a bit more intense than the one that we do sitting down. So what you do is hold on, you need like a work surface, hold on to the bottom of the work surface, and all we do now, same what we did before, is you lean back, so I've got my arm front, play with the angles a little bit, see what works best for you. So the front here, or the side, and I'm leaning back. But now we can do, is if you think, well actually, okay, I don't have that much of a benefit from this, just stand on your toes. So you're standing on your toes, and by standing on your toes, you're putting your arm, obviously, more down, so you're getting even more space in the subacromial space, giving even more relief. The same thing here, hold for 10 seconds, repeat it 5 times, and play a little bit with the angle to get yourself the traction in the right angle to give you the most relief. So when you experience shoulder pain, but you can raise your arm above 90 degrees, above the horizontal, without any pain, this is definitely the exercise you need to do next. And we're going to do a partial hang. So you need to find yourself like a beam, or you can do like a pull-up bar. You can get them off Amazon, or you can find, I've seen people using a door and placing a towel around the door and hanging off the towel. That's something you can do. You need to do a partial hang first. What you need to do is make sure your hand palms face away from you. Hang on to the top of the bar and do a partial hang. So you still support your body weight with your legs. You hold this for about 10-15 seconds. You repeat between 5 and 10 times. Now, if that goes well, you can then move on to a full hang. So what you do that, same thing, you hang all the way down and you raise your feet off the ground and you go to a full hang and you hold this again for about 10 to 15 seconds and you repeat 5 to 10 times. Now I've actually, if you can do this, I've done another video. This hang should be followed up with some strengthening exercises, specific strengthening exercises. Check out this video if you want to see which exercises they are. They will be really beneficial for a shoulder impingement. So a lot of people who experience shoulder pain will have even more pain at night laying on that shoulder. So what I'll do is I'll go through the common sleeping positions, laying on your back, your side and your front, and tell you how to adapt it to give you less pain at night in your shoulder so you can have a good night's sleep. The first position we're going to mention is sleeping on your back. Now, when people are sleeping on your back in itself doesn't give you any shoulder problems at all, but what does give you problems is if you sleep on your back and your arms are stretched up like this. This will definitely give you a problem. So what you need to do is you need to keep your arms down. Now this is difficult. What's going to happen is initially you're going to keep your arms wake up obviously at night with your arms over your head again. Don't worry about it. Keep on doing it, keep on focusing, having your arms down. You're trying to break habit, and when you do it every night, I will guarantee you at some stage you'll keep your arms down and have less pain in your shoulder. So the second position we do is sleeping on your side. So when sleeping on your side, many people either they sleep on the affected shoulder because they can't sleep anywhere else, so this will give you a problem, or they can't sleep on the affected shoulder and the affected shoulder is on top. So the first thing you need to do, if you want to sleep with your affected shoulder down, you need to use some pillows. So the first pillow you need is a pillow to place in your back. So you place the pillow in your back, thereby creating a 45-degree angle. So you can actually sleep a little bit on your back, not on the shoulder, but in a 45-degree angle. So there's less pressure on the shoulder. Then you take another pillow and you place the pillow on top. Yeah, and now you have this pillow here. And this will actually, now if your pain is in your top arm, you now rest your top arm and have less pain in the shoulder on the top. So now you're laying in a 45-degree angle, less pressure on your affected shoulder if it's the bottom one, and a more relaxed position of your shoulder if it's the top one. So this is the best way to sleep on side position. So sleeping on your front, I mean, first of all, it's something that you should not be doing. Sleeping on your front means your neck twists all the way to the side, or this side, and you tilt backwards, so you get a lot of pressure on your neck. But when you're sleeping on your front, what a lot of people do is they sleep on the front, and then sleep with the arm under the pillow. So have the arm all the way up here. So the first thing you try and do is, again, use a pillow, put the pillow, prop it up a bit, put it on the side. So you almost sleep like in a 45-degree angle, so less pressure on your neck, less pressure on the shoulder. Yeah, that's already better for the arm. And instead of having the arm all the way at the top, try to have your arm a little bit more down. So instead of having it here, having it in this position here. And that will definitely reduce pressure on your shoulder as well. Now, don't you worry if you try this and it doesn't immediately work. Keep at it. You're trying to break a habit, you're trying to break a vicious circle. Give yourself about 15 minutes every night to sleep in that new position. If it hasn't worked, go back to your old position because you need a good night's sleep. But if you do it every night for about 15 minutes, I guarantee at some stage you will then get used to this new position, and that will be the position you sleep in. So the next exercise I'm going to demonstrate to you is a brilliant exercise to reduce that pinched nerve feeling in your shoulder. And what it does is we're activating muscles on the back of your shoulder, and those muscles pull your upper arm a little bit away from the roof of your shoulder, thereby increasing the space where all those structures sit that give you that pinched feeling in the shoulder. So what you need to do is you need a TheraBand, one I've got here, tie it up to a doorknob, and Mike is to a door handle. Stand upright, that's important. Don't do the exercise slouch. Make sure you stand upright. Have your thumb pointing towards the ceiling, and always make sure your elbows firmly tucked into your side. And all you do now is you move your arm outwards for about 10 to 15 repetitions, and you do 3 sets with about 30-second break between each set. You should do this exercise daily. This is the first exercise which helps you immediately with the pain relief, pain reduction, but also helps you to avoid this coming back in the future. So this next exercise, the strengthening exercise, is an absolute beauty, and I don't know why you don't see very often on YouTube. It's a really effective exercise to help with the impingement, that pinch feeling in that shoulder. So what you need to do, again, use the same TheraBand. I need to face the other way now. You see my thumb is now pointing away from me. I'm now turning my thumb towards me. My arm is in line with my body. Thumb towards me. I make sure I have a straight elbow, and all I do now is I pull my arm with the straight elbow backwards and towards the center. So I'm putting it backwards and towards the center, so towards my buttocks. And by doing this, I'm strengthening a muscle called latissimus dorsi, and this muscle again helps to increase the space where the tendons and the nerves sit that give you the pinch feeling in that shoulder. So the same thing, you do 10 repetitions, you do 3 sets, and you're done. So this next exercise, the strengthening exercise, is an absolute beauty, and I don't know why you don't see very often on YouTube. It's a really effective exercise to help with the impingement, the pinch feeling in that shoulder. So what you need to do, again, use the same TheraBand. I need to face the other way now. You see my thumb is now pointing away from me. I'm now turning my thumb towards me. My arm is in line with my body. Thumb towards me. I make sure I have a straight elbow, and all I do now is I pull my arm with the straight elbow backwards and towards the center. So I'm putting it backwards and towards the center, so towards my buttocks. And by doing this, I'm strengthening a muscle called latissimus dorsi, And this muscle, again, helps to increase the space where the tendons and the nerves sit that give you the pinch feeling in that shoulder. So the same thing, you do 10 repetitions, you do 3 sets, and you have about a 30-second break between each set, and you can do this exercise daily. I hope this video will help you to get a good night's sleep again with less interruptions. If you found any value in this video, please don't hesitate to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment in the box below. If you know someone who's dealing with a shoulder issue, please don't hesitate, press the share button at the bottom and forward this video to them so they can be helped as well. For me, for now, is to say bye-bye, take care of yourself, take care of someone else please as well if you can, and bye for now. Bye-bye. With my body, thumb towards me, I make sure I have a straight elbow, and all I do now is I pull my arm with a straight elbow backwards and towards the center. So I'm putting it backwards and towards the center, so towards my buttocks. And by doing this, I'm strengthening the muscle of the latissimus dorsi, and this muscle again helps to increase the space where the tendons and the nerves sit that give you the pinch feeling in that shoulder. So the same thing, you do 10 repetitions, you do 3 sets, and you have about a 30-second break between each set, and you do this exercise daily. I hope this video will help you to get a good night's sleep again with less interruptions. If you found any value in this video, please don't hesitate to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment in the box below. If you know someone who's dealing with a shoulder issue, please don't hesitate, press the share button at the bottom and forward this video to them so they can help as well. For me, for now, is to say bye-bye, take care of yourself, take care of yourself, please, wherever you can, and bye for now. Bye-bye.
Pain that starts in your neck and shoots down your arm. Maybe it's tingling or a numbness sensation. You might have weakness in your shoulder or gripping things. You might drop things frequently. You might even have pain into your shoulder blade or into your head. If you're experiencing any of these symptoms, you might be suffering from a pinched nerve in your neck. The technical term is called a cervical radiculopathy. In this video, I'm going to show you my favorite 6 stretches that can help you get rid of those symptoms in the comfort of your home. My name is Dr. John Saunders, and in this video I'm going to show you some effective stretches that help get rid of a pinch in your neck at home. This will be a little bit different than my typical videos where I say follow along exactly these exercises in this order for this amount of time. Cervical radiculopathy, or a pinched nerve in the neck, can sometimes be a bit tricky to help, especially if you're not sure what nerve roots involved. So of the stretch I'm going to show you, I'm going to encourage you to try them all and then gravitate to the ones that give you the most relief. I'm seeing so many more patients suffering from a pinched nerve in their neck, and the likely reason, we're sitting too much. We're not moving enough. We're slouching in front of our computers, sitting with poor posture, watching our TV. This puts pressure on our discs, which is probably one of the most common causes of a pinched nerve in your neck is a disc bulge or herniation. Another thing that can cause a pinched nerve is degenerative disc disease or a bone spur or an osteophyte that might be pressing on a nerve. If you're under a lot of stress, tight muscles can also irritate or pinch a nerve, causing that pain to shoot down your arm. Clinically, we see this correlated with a neck that's out of alignment or not moving properly. So often these things go in conjunction with an underlying issue like a disc bulge herniation or degenerative disc disease. Before I get into these stretches, here is my disclaimer. If any of these stretches or exercises cause more discomfort, I want you to stop immediately. I also encourage you before attempting any of these to make sure you have an appropriate diagnosis. Without an appropriate diagnosis, you really don't know if the cause of your problem is treatable without professional help. So I encourage you to please seek out a proper diagnosis from your healthcare provider before trying any of these exercises or stretches. We're going to break these stretches into 2 groups. The first group are going to be general. These are the ones I recommend you try first and see if they give you any relief. The second series of stretches I go through with you will be a little more specific to specific nerve roots. How will you know if they're working? well, your pain, your tingling, your weakness will improve. One thing you want to pay attention to is what we call centralization. Centralization is when the pain starts to move back to the center of your body or your spinal segments. If you are experiencing centralization or a reduction of the pain, and it seems to be focusing more and more centrally, you are on the right track. The first one, we're going to apply some traction. There's going to be a few variations, but just stay with me as we walk through this together. First thing you do, you're going to take your hands and you're going to cup them on the back of the occiput, and you're going to grab your thumbs underneath your mandible or chin. You want to be careful here if you have a jaw or a TMJ joint problem. You don't want to irritate that trying to fix your pinched nerve. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our hands, we're going to cup our head, and we're going to slightly traction, almost like a tricep extension. You're just going to very slowly increase the force until you get a comfortable feel. You're going to hold that for a minimum of 10 seconds. Try to make it up to 30 seconds, and you do this 3 times. So for some that might find that difficult with the arms, another easy, effective way to do this is with a small towel or a pillowcase. Again, we're going to come behind our neck, just very simply extend up, really pull. And some other variations here, for some of you might get relief when your head is in slight extension, but for some, that actually might irritate the nerve. So if that irritates it, try to come into a little bit of flexion and pull up. Just change the angle slightly. Typically you'll have an irritated nerve on one side, so another variation of this is when you're tractioning up, just rotate to one side, oftentimes the side away from the irritated nerve. So if it's on your left, you're going to traction and just maybe a little bit more force through the upper hand. So what you're doing, essentially, you're tractioning the neck and opening up the one side where those nerves come out. For this next one, I really like this one because it helps support the natural curve in the neck. We all know that a natural curve is important to keep pressure off the disc and keep the nerve happy as they exit between the two bones. For this one, you're going to need a roll towel or a small pool noodle. So we're going to lie down. We're going to place the roll towel or the small pool noodle right in the middle of our neck. So right away you start to feel some traction as that smooth curve is stretched and relaxed into the correct position. The addition to this is we're going to take our hands on the back of our head and our mandible, like in the first one I showed you, and we're going to gently traction while our neck is supported by the pool noodle or the roll towel. This one we can stay on this pool noodle for, again, 10 to 30 seconds, 3 to 5 times with a bit of rest between each set. A modification of this, if you find that your roll towel is not sufficient, come to the edge of a couch or a bed, and again, just use the weight of your head to traction into that cervical